Hey, I'm Rob Gantt with the Goose Creek Gazette and the Berkeley Independent. I'm here today at the Summerville Communications offices with two of my teammates, Roger Lee of the Summerville Journal Scene, Rickey Dennis of the Berkeley Independent. Guys, we've made it through Week 9 of the high school football season. Week 10 is here. It's going to feel a little more like football season, and there are some epic matchups on the slate this week. Roger, there's none bigger than the one between Summerville and Fort Dorchester, I think. It's at Summerville on Friday. Tell us about that, and then also kind of look back to Week 9, give some results and some stats from those weeks.
Right. Week 9 kind of set up the big matchup coming up this week. Ashley Ridge beat Wando 26-23 in an overtime match. That puts them in third place for the region. So it's looking like they're going to get a home playoff game. The brackets, we're not to that point in the season yet, but more than likely they'll be starting the playoffs at home. And they do still have a game this week to take care of business too. Matt Duncan passed for 160 yards and 2 touchdowns in that game. Both touchdown passes were caught by Josh Linton, including the second one in overtime to clinch the win over Wando. Defensive back Rodney Oldham had an interception and took it back to the house, 58 yards. I think it was 68 yards actually, for a score. That was in regulation. And kicker Alex Lazick made 3 field goals in the game for Ashley Ridge. Oldham now has 112 tackles, including 2 sacks and 4 interceptions. So he's looking like a strong candidate for some of those postseason honors that we have coming up.
Yep.
Jaheim President has 11 sacks on the season. The other Swamp Fox defensive end, Blaine DuBose, has 9 sacks. So that gives them some promise going into the playoffs. If they can put pressure on the quarterback, that's always a good thing for teams. Yeah. Summerville remained undefeated in the region with a 41-9 victory over one of your teams, Stratford. Summerville outgained Stratford 452 yards to 163 yards in total offense. Jonathan Bennett had 3 touchdown passes and rushed for another touchdown pass. Passed, 12 completions, 124 yards, while also getting 63 on the ground. Someone we hadn't heard a whole lot from, junior Pedro Rios, who transferred from Fort to Summerville this year. He led the wave in rushing with 110 yards and a touchdown run on 4 carries. The workhorse for the Green Wave is Darryl Hancock, their tailback. He had 15 carries for 85 yards and a touchdown. He picked up 5 of Summerville's 11 first downs. So that's going to be key. We'll talk about it a little bit more in their game coming up. Hancock, when things go well for Hancock, usually things go well for the Green Wave. So. Andre Banks had a 19-yard touchdown catch. Shaq Davis broke up a pass for 76 yards and a touchdown. Olin McCurry also had a touchdown reception. Defense, Cole Phillips recovered a muff punt to set up a score. Corey Hewitt recovered a Stratford fumble. Derek Larry had an interception. I believe that also led to a Summerville score. But if not, good field position. Then also in the region, remaining undefeated in the region, Fort Dorchester had a 52-0 shutout at West Ashley. DeCarrion Joyner was 16 for 26 passing for 348 yards, 2 touchdowns, and had a touchdown run. One of his better games, to say the least. Senior receiver Justin Williams finished with 7 catches for 137 yards. Junior Chaz Jones had 100 yards in receptions. And a touchdown. Raekwon Simmons had 4 catches for 77 yards and a touchdown. Running back Drew Parker led the Patriot rushers with 129 yards and 2 touchdowns. And now the thing probably most people want to talk about is Summerville hosts Fort Dorchester in the final game of the scheduled season. That's at Memorial Stadium, 7:30. Fort Dorchester is looking to have their second perfect season in school history. They went 15-0 in 2015, and if they beat Summerville, then the only way they don't go undefeated is if they get knocked out of the playoffs. So, Summerville would like to actually prevent that. The Waves' only loss this season came to Berkeley, in a game where their defense was had several starters out from some stuff that happened early in the first game of the season. Not to take anything away from Berkeley. Berkeley took it to them. But, still, one loss for the Green Wave going into the last week of the season. That's pretty impressive. Summerville leads that series with Fort 21 games to 6, but the Patriots have won the last 4 in a row. The seniors on this Patriot team are looking to graduate without a varsity loss to Summerville. And they would be, I believe, and I should have probably checked this, I believe they would be the first Fort graduating class to be able to say that.
They've only won 6 overall, so yeah.
Yeah. Let's see. It's going to be a game. Two well-balanced teams that can both score. They can both really shut down an opponent's offense when they play at their best. Obviously Fort's got that head of steam rolling. But what do you think, Rob? I mean, Summerville. Do you kind of smell an upset or anything?
I'll also go with Rickey on this one too. Honestly, what it looks like to me is you've got a world-class fighter versus a really good fighter. Obviously, Fort Dorchester being the world-class fighter, the very good fighter being Summerville. I think Fort Dorchester is just too good. I think Summerville could play a perfect game and still lose by 21. I mean, that's the type of monster that you're dealing with Fort Dorchester. I don't know. I saw Summerville earlier, and I just don't see how they could put a complete game together and defeat Fort Dorchester. You've actually seen Summerville too, and you went to Summerville. What are Summerville's chances?
I did see Summerville play once. Now, granted, to what Roger was saying, the game that I did see, they did have some of those defensive guys out, so I didn't get the privilege of seeing the whole defense in action. But even with that, they still competing against Berkeley, a team with an explosive offense, and were able to not totally get right. Blown out, and still be able to maintain a lot of those explosive guys on offense. Now, I haven't seen DeCarrion Jordan play live, but from what I know, we know that it's almost impossible really to contain or to keep him from doing what he's going to do. So I think that Summerville has a chance from the standpoint of if they play really, really good defense, then anything is possible in high school football. But I think again, if you're a Fort Dorchester fan, you feel really good about DeCarrion going out there and having an explosive game as he's been doing all season, and you're pretty confident that you'll get that win. So.
Yeah, the thing that, for me, what puts Fort over the top is the fact that they've been excellent on defense this year. I mean, they shut out West Ashley, and I saw West Ashley in person. They got some weapons, and Fort Dorchester stymied them. They didn't even sniff the goal line. Yeah. So, Fort Dorchester's defense, I think, is what really separates the two. Obviously the offense gets all the headlines, but what makes them a championship team, I believe, is the fact that their defense has improved and greatly. Well, speaking of big games, I hear you're going to be at one Friday. Cane Bay and Berkeley. It's at Cane Bay High School. It's for the Region 8-4A championship. Yeah. Give us your thoughts on Berkeley, and I'll tell you what I think about Cane Bay.
Sure. Well, again, as a Summerville graduate, anytime I hear about that Fort Dorchester and Summerville rivalry, I get excited. So I would have particularly been excited about that matchup that Roger is talking about. But having covered Berkeley over this past year, and having seen those Berkeley and Cane Bay go head to head last year, and see how big of a game that was, I'm really looking forward to this matchup between these two teams. They're both undefeated in the region. They both have explosive offenses, so I think this is going to be a really good matchup. I think what will make the difference is going to be the defense, particularly for Cane Bay. Can Cane Bay do a good job at containing those explosive guys on Berkeley's offense? And I've been saying this all season. Every time you watch Berkeley play, you're always waiting for that one 60-yard run breakout play from Keyshawn Wicks and DJ Chisholm, and all it takes is one of those to really get those guys excited and confident. And it's almost, for every team they played, it's been downhill from there. So I think that's going to make make Cane Bay the winner, is if they can keep those guys from not having those 90-yard punt returns and things like that to really keep them within striking distance, because once I think that momentum shifts to Berkeley's side, I don't think there's too much that anybody can do to stop that. So
well, speaking of offense, we don't want to forget about it. Berkeley scored 73 on Friday against Carlton County. You don't have to wax poetic about it, but just kind of give us a little bit of a rundown on what happened with that.
Yeah. Well, the score was 73-43, so I had everybody asking me after I tweeted
it was that 70 show.
Yeah, asking me if it was a basketball game or a football game. So no, but Berkeley, I mean, everybody got in. I think the story of the night was Keyshawn Wicks breaking that 1,000th rushing yard mark on the season. So, and he had, I think, almost, I heard from the guy keeping the stats, had like 300 rushing yards, or pushing 300 rushing yards at halftime. So, those guys for Berkeley's offense, I mean, they pretty much got everything going. Eric Tuttle was looking really comfortable. He's starting to run the ball a lot more, and even had a touchdown rushing the ball too. So between him, Eric Tuttle, DJ Chisholm, Keyshawn Wicks, Jeremiah Mack, a lot of guys got in on the scoring for Berkeley against Carlton County this past Friday.
Well, switching gears to St. John's Christian, the Cavaliers have a home game this Friday.
Yes.
I think it's against Holly Hill Academy. Tell us a little bit that you know about that.
Yep. So the Cavs are 5-4. Holly Hill is 1-7. So it looks like a good opportunity for the Cavs to get their sixth win going into playoff action. And I believe that you mentioned that this would tie their the win total from last season.
Right.
So given this sixth win, it would give them a lot of motivation going into the playoffs to get that seventh win, and just to have some tangible evidence that you're improving each and every year in the program.
Right.
Obviously, Mikey Smith, we don't have official stats, but I'm quite sure he has a load of yards on the ground as well as through the air.
He has a lot of.
The guy's absolutely phenomenal. So he's going to be a guy to look out for. Cooper Moore, Blaze Pasta, some other guys to look out for St. John's Christian. So again, a good opportunity for them, a home game for them to get a win and get a lot of momentum going into playoff action. And if I'm, Coach McCall over there, the extra motivation I believe is to, get another win than you did last year. He said that when I spoke with him earlier this season, is just to get that extra win, get that extra game, because for high school guys, that's you want to know that you've made some improvements within the past year.
I know they were banged up a little bit a couple of weeks ago when I went down there. I'm not sure how healthy they're getting heading into the playoffs, but if they do get everybody back, I think St. John's Christian is a pretty good team that can make some noise in the playoffs. Not sure if they can win it all, but we'll just have to see if they can get people back healthy. Well, over here on my side of the fence, I'll start with the guys that are off this week. Hanahan and Cross will be sitting at home chilling on Friday night. They don't have to play. They have a bye week in week 10, but it'll give them an extra a week to kind of get healthy and also take an extra look at whoever their playoff opponent may be in November. Like you said, Berkeley and Cane Bay played. For me, Cane Bay, the key there is, can they move the football? Can they hang on to it? Can they milk the clock? Whether they score or not, if they can move the chains and convert first downs, I think Cane Bay has a chance. And obviously the other side of it is they got to play well on defense, maybe create some breaks for themselves, get some turnovers. One other note about that game is R.J. Roderick, who was a quarterback that was injured. He may have been they said he was out for the season at the time. There's rumor going around that he may end up being able to suit back up, which I think we all kind of expected he would try to come back for the playoffs. Well, he may play a little bit on Friday, not sure offensively or defensively. I think if he plays on defense, maybe he helps him at safety, but I'm not sure how active he's been in his time out. They haven't, even though he's been out, Cane Bay hasn't missed a beat on offense. Kris Copeland has been phenomenal filling in. Against Buford on Friday, he had 5 touchdowns rushing. He went over 300 yards, which, that's a lot for a quarterback. So that'll be the key on Friday is can Cane Bay stay on the field offensively. Another big game in Berkeley County, Timberland High School hosts Bishop England. It'll be for the Region 7-3A championship. I mean, that's just what the Wolves do. Seems like every year they're in these types of matchups with a chance to win it all. The Wolves, let's see, on Friday. Actually, they played on Saturday. They beat Franklin Christian 50-0. The defense came up with 5 turnovers. Jordan Wilford and Terrence Smalls took theirs back for touchdowns, and pretty much everybody and their brother, the band, relatives come out of the stands playing. I mean, it was that type of game. Everybody played for the Wolves. This Friday, what do I expect? Bishop England is a good football team. They got a great quarterback, Leo Albano. But Timberland just really gets the football and defense, and I think they'll be able to trip them up, slow Bishop England down, whereas a lot of teams haven't been able to. I would look for Timberland to win the football game. That'll be their 12th region championship in 13 seasons. Coach Craig has said he's been really proud of how his defense has kind of put it all together and played great this year, because going into the season he didn't really know what to expect. Stratford and Goose Creek, not too – they haven't had great memorable seasons, but they're going to play one last game in this regular season over at Stratford High School. From what I understand, the winner of the game will definitely advance to the playoffs. And so, it's a rivalry game, and it's going to be a bonkers atmosphere, because it always is. The key in that game, I think, is, I won't say the key, but looking at it, Goose Creek and Stratford, when you compare scores and the flow of all their games, you can come to the conclusion that Goose Creek is probably a little bit better of the two teams. But when you look deeper at it, I think it's a matchup that Stratford has an opportunity to come out on top in, simply because their problem really all season has been just slowing anybody down, because the defense is just not great this year. Well, Goose Creek is not prolific on offense, so that's something where Stratford kind of matches up a little better against Goose Creek than it has all year. For Goose Creek, I think the key is really just to not help Stratford out. That ball game is probably going to come down to the wire. On Friday, those two teams played. Goose Creek knocked off James Island 17-7. Good defensive effort for the Gators. Brandon Taylor picked up a fumble, returned it to the house 40 yards for a touchdown in the second half. Gators running back Dante Smith had 142 yards and scored a touchdown. So the Gators go into the rival game with some momentum. Stratford played Friday, as you mentioned earlier. They lost to Summerville. One little note there for Stratford, Mario Anderson, who's a pretty good running back. He went over 1,000 yards for the season. He went over 100 yards in that game. He scored a touchdown from 45 yards. And the kicker for Stratford, Charles Morgan, made a field goal for Stratford's only points. One other game to get to, Northwood is at First Baptist. Northwood is coming off a 39-0 win over, I think it was Hilton Head Prep. Emmanuel Johnson had 11 tackles. Zach Hefner had 10 tackles. The quarterback for the Chargers, Matt Lewis, he accounted for 4 touchdowns. I think he ran for 3, passed for 1. And but the Chargers have their hands full with First Baptist. First Baptist has a lot of college level talent. They're the defending champions of Skeeza 2A, and they've been obliterating people this year. So Northwood has his hands full, but they'll go over there and give it all they have. See other scores from Friday. I didn't mention Cross knocked off Scotts Branch 42-6. It wasn't just one Walker doing the damage. It was 2. Nate Walker, who was a Shrine Bowl selection for the Trojans, he rushed for 2 touchdowns, and he had 2 solo tackles, had 140 yards rushing. Well, his brother Nathaniel proved he's a monster, too. He scooped up a fumble and ran back 89 yards. Big old fella just going down the field, shedding, people trying to tackle him. So great effort by Nate Walker and Nathaniel Walker. Cross, like I said, is off. Good effort by them, 42-6. Kobe Lisbon ran for touchdown and threw for touchdown for Cross. Let's see, what other score? Let's see, leaving one out here. Oh, Hanahan knocked off Lake Marion 56-0. Quincy Mitchell had his typical type of game for the Hawks. He accounted for well over 200 yards rushing and receiving. He accounted for 3 touchdowns. I think he ran for, what did he do? I think he caught one and he ran for 2. Jake Ward, the quarterback for the Hawks, he threw for 3 touchdowns in that game. So Hanahan went into its bye week on a high note. Now they're looking forward to the playoffs. Guys, we got a couple more notes. One, we don't want to leave out our All-Star selections. Earlier this week, the North-South All-Stars, I guess it's commonly referred to the North-South All-Star Game. It's really the Touchstone Energy Cooperatives Bowl or something. They play it in Myrtle Beach in December. I had 2 guys make it. Kris Copeland from Cane Bay. We talked about him earlier, what a magnificent player he is. 15 total touchdowns on the year, 4 special teams touchdowns. Quincy Mitchell from Hanahan, he also made it. And he has over 1,400 yards rushing on the season. So congratulations to those 2 guys. I know you guys also had some people on the team. I guess we'll go back to Roger over here. Who'd you have make it from make the North-South game?
2 Fort Dorchester guys, not surprising that they would have 2 in there. James Milton, defensive lineman, who's kind of anchored that group this year. And it's just, prototypical good lineman. You can do it all. Good size, but he's not slow. And then also defensive back D'Angelo Knight, who started his career over at Pinewood, transferred to Fort Dorchester a couple of years ago, and he did well at Pinewood, and he has done even better at Fort Dorchester. Just a really good shutdown defensive back. He has a couple of interceptions on the year, but they don't look for him necessarily to be that guy who has all the picks. They look for him to do a lot of things, and he's that's why the North-South coaches liked him.
I mean, it's a shame that Fort Dorchester couldn't get more because they're such a talented team. They could have had 3 or 4 in that game for sure, but that's just how it works out. Teams only get 2 selections for the North-South All-Star game. Rickey, you also had 2, I believe. Tell us who they are and tell us what you think.
Yeah, so Berkeley had 2 guys going. Kicker Tate McCurry, who last year struggled a lot. Actually, let me pause that. I guess that's his name wrong. McMurray.
Let me say so you got okay. From what I understand, you also have 2 guys on the All-Star team. Tell us about those 2 guys.
Sure. So Berkeley had 2 guys going to North-South. Tate McMurray, the kicker for the Stags. Last year he struggled a lot, and this year he's made a lot of improvements in field goal percentage and even the lengths of the kickoff. So I'm sure, I'm not sure, Randy Robertson is pretty proud of his kicker. He did suffer an injury, I believe, one game where he sat out this season, but came back against in Colleton County and performed pretty well. So also a Blake Jenkins Williams, a defensive lineman for the Stags. One guy who Coach Rob really likes because he just falls in line with the whole defensive culture that Coach Rob is trying to bring, which is to win the game in the trenches. So a solid defensive lineman for the Stags. One notable play that comes to mind is, I believe it was at Hanahan where the big fella just scooped up a fumble and returned it for a couple dozen yards. So that was a good night for him. So yeah, I'm sure again the Stags are proud of their play to send 2 up and hopefully get the South a win.
Yeah, the South has not had a whole lot of success in that lately. I don't have the numbers right in front of me, but I know they've only won the South Side, which is the lower state seniors, has only won like twice in maybe 10, 12, 13 years or something. So the South will look to get back on track there. The North leads that series 40, 27, and 2, I think. One other note, Charleston Southern will be at home on Saturday at 6 o'clock. They will host the Monmouth Hawks in the Big South Conference. The second Big South Conference game for the Charleston Southern Buccaneers. Charleston Southern coming off a resounding win over Savannah State. The quarterback for Charleston Southern, London Johnson, he had over 200 yards passing, ran for over 100, so total dual threat, and he passed for 4 touchdowns. So Charleston Southern looking to improve now to 2-0 in the Big South Conference. Their other win was 2 weeks. Their other Big South Conference win was 2 weeks before, 7-0 at Presbyterian. So Charleston Southern trying to get everything together on the same page. Offensively, they were excellent last week. 2 weeks ago, they had a great defense. So if they can put it all together, they're going to definitely be in the running to win the Big South Conference.